Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Bio 153. In this series of videos, we are going to be talking about muscle. And in this particular video, I will be starting out with skeletal muscle anatomy. Okay. So before I talk about skeletal muscle anatomy, I want to introduce you to the three main types of muscle. So we have three main types of muscle. We've got skeletal muscle, which is responsible for body movement, and it's under voluntary control. We've got cardiac muscle, which is found in the heart, and that is not under voluntary control. And then finally, we have smooth muscle, which is the main type of muscle found in our internal organs. And, it's responsible for muscle contractions in our organs, moving things around in our organs, and so on. Okay. I do want to point out here that both skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle, I'm not sure if you can really see it in this video, but you can definitely see it in the cartoon versions of these drawings, of these pictures. Those two types of muscles are what we call striated, meaning that they have a striped appearance. See that? See the stripes there? And there are stripes there. Okay. In this portion of the class, we're mostly going to be focusing on skeletal muscle. I will be ending with a little bit about smooth muscle. We will not be covering cardiac muscle in this part of the class, but we'll talk about it when we get to cardiac physiology, which is next. Okay. Right, that was supposed to be before I just said that, but anyway. Okay, so basic skeletal muscle anatomy. Actually, there's just one point I want to make in this slide, which is that muscles are attached to our bones via tendons, right? So you can see this muscle here, and you can see tendons on this end here, and tendons on this, or one tendon on this end here. Tendons are made of collagen. Okay, I want to introduce to you this concept of antagonistic muscle groups. Okay, so first off, I just want to start by explaining to you that the job of skeletal muscle is to move two bones closer to each other or farther away from each other around a joint, right? So looking at my arm here, we're moving the bones closer together or farther apart, okay? Because muscles can only actively shorten and not lengthen, each joint needs two muscle groups around it. So just going back to this point of muscles only being able to actively shorten and not lengthen, remember I mentioned this when we talked about the somatic motor system, that muscles can only receive a command to shorten. They're only able to contract or not contract, right? So they can relax, which is not contracting, but there's no command and there's no machinery in place to make a muscle lengthen, okay? So we can only shorten or relax, okay? And because of that, we need two muscle groups around each joint, right? So we have one muscle group that's going to bring your joint, your two bones closer together. And we call that the flexor. Okay, so in this example, the flexor is the biceps muscle. Okay, if we're looking at our elbow joint. Okay, and then we have another muscle, which we call the antagonistic muscle, that's going to pull those two joints farther away, those two bones farther away from each other, right? It's going to increase the angle, okay? So it's going to contract in order to bring those bones farther away from each other, okay? When one of the muscles in an antagonistic muscle group contracts, the other one relaxes, right? So in this example, if we are going to bring our bones closer together around this joint, we're going to contract the biceps muscle and we're going to relax the triceps muscle, the extensor. Okay. And here's a quick question for you. So we just went over the example of the muscle movements uh, responsible for doing this. Okay. How would you straighten your arm? What muscles, what would you need to do with your muscles to straighten your arm? So think about that for a second. And okay, so hopefully you figured out that in order to straighten your arm, you're going to need to contract your triceps muscle and relax your biceps muscle. Okay. Okay, so let's take a closer look at skeletal muscle and its structure. Okay. A skeletal muscle is basically kind of this bundle of, of more bundles. The kind of basic unit that's in a skeletal muscle is the muscle fiber. Okay. Those muscle fibers actually get bundled together in these little bundles, which we call fascicles, but don't worry about the name. They're surrounded by connective tissue. Kind of each level of bundling, you get additional connective tissue. There's blood vessels and nerves in that connective tissue. Okay. And then eventually we make a muscle out of a bunch of these bundles. Okay. And a skeletal muscle is also going to have connective tissue around the outside. That connective tissue is going to be continuous with the tendon that's going to attach that muscle to the bone. Okay. What else? Oh, let's talk about muscle fibers. So a muscle fiber is an individual cell. But muscle fibers are very special cells in that they're really long. So they're these really long cells that are multinucleate. They can have hundreds of nuclei in them. Basically, they originate during development from individual cells that have fused together to form this one long muscle fiber.